I'm just gonna tighten it up with some quantizing, and here we go. All right, we have the whole melody here. All right, here's the full melody. Here's the main motif. Here's the main motif. And then repetition, but instead of going down, I'm going up with a repetition of the same motif, just higher up. And then we go to a different kind of variation. And you see this? It's the same kind of rhythmic and melodic pattern, it's just with different notes. So I'm not going completely off the track here, I'm just, keeping it a bit interesting, but using the same motif core to build on. And then at the end, we have same motif and destruction, just ending on that D. So that's that melody. Again, you have presentation, and then you have a kind of repetition with a slight variation, different variation, and a destruction at the end. All right, let's take the final melody that we have, which is this one. And turn that into a full melody. So the first repetition is this. And second one, I go up at the end instead of down. So I'm retaining most of the motif, but just making it a little bit different to make it a bit more interesting. Then in the second half, I'm going to actually take the whole thing one octave up. Which is basically the same as the second variation, an octave up, but then I'm gonna have a destruction that's completely different at the end. So I'll end here and keep going to. So let me record that and then we can look at what it looks like. So here we have the melody. I'm just again going to try to make up for my sloppy performance by just quantizing a little bit. It's a bit of latency when I'm recording the screen because it goes into the screencast software, which is why the recordings might not be, as perfect every time, because there's a little bit of latency between the time I hit the key and when I hear it in my headphones as I'm recording this, so excuse on my sloppy playing. Alright, so this one is a little bit more of a interesting melody. It goes a little bit more all over the place, has a bigger span, and it's going to make sense when you hear it arranged, because I kind of write these melodies with the end result in mind. And that's something that's going to become more and more natural the more you write, basically. So first of all, we have the main motif here. Then mostly the same again. And then we have the the same thing as here, just an octave up. It's a bit different at the end. And then in destruction. Alright, now let me just like quickly play you a quick mock-up in this sketch show. I don't want you to, worry too much about the chords or the arrangement or anything. I just want to show you kind of what I'm writing with in mind here. So you don't, like I'm just not, putting in random notes. So let me just show it to you real fast. So there you go. Now let's listen to the theme again so you kind of can hear that in your head as you listen to this melody, and it might make a little bit more sense. Alright, there we go. Now let's go back and kind of look at the shape of these different melodies, because that's also a bit interesting. Alright, so we have the first one right here. Alright, to make this a little bit more interesting while we look at the shape and contour of these melodies, let me just, take us down to the sketch zone and just put this into the strings and add some chords to them, which don't worry about that too much right now. Just want to kind of make this a bit more interesting to listen to. Alright, you hear this a little bit different performance here again, which again is just because I felt it gave it a little bit more human feel, a little bit more of an emotional peak. And speaking of peaks, this is, as you see, the peak of the melody. It starts here, kind of lingers around here in the second repetition, then builds to a peak and down again. And this is how a lot of effective melodies are kind of shaped. They take in a little bit of a journey, establish the home base, take you into a peak and then down. Now let's look at the next one. Alright, now you can hear that this melody also makes a little bit more sense. And as you see here as well, we're establishing the home base, starting up, going down, going up, 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 a bit higher, and then in the second half, we reach a peak at the highest note. Which you see here, and then we end up going down a little bit closer to home at the very end. So starting here, going up, peak, and then slowly down towards the end. I see there's like slight differences in the performance, but I just wanted to focus on the general kind of things in this melody. So as you see, start with the motif going down, start a motif going a little bit higher, and then we reach the peak, the highest note in the third half. Then we go down, back and kind of, setting ourselves up for the next repetition of the melody or the next section. Let's quickly move on to the final theme and do the same thing. Alright, so this one is a little bit different, but again, it starts establishing the home, then rising up, and then rising up even more until we reach the climax and the peak up here. But what's different with it is that it never kind of arrives back home. This is a kind of theme that kind of just keeps building and building and building, and that would work well in a structure kind of like Hans Zimmer's Time, where it just keeps evolving, getting bigger and bigger and bigger throughout the piece. So these are all different ways to structure your melodies using the motifs. And as you can hear now at the end, when I've kind of given you a little bit of context to the reasoning behind my choices, you see that all of these melodies can easily be written using this technique of differences between presentations, repetitions, variations, and totally different elements to keep it a bit more spicy and interesting. So I hope this has been helpful. And in the next videos, we're going to look at how we can, first of all, create the harmonic beds that you've heard now at the end, and look at the reasoning and the methods behind that as well. And then we're going to have even more fun and create some counter melodies and ostinatos for these things. So I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you guys later.